Why, hello! It's time for the GP Does PG podcast live on 88.7 CFUR Thursday mornings at 9. My guest today told me he'll be running a little bit late, but spoiler alert, it's Ian Gregg. I have a lot of things on my mind recently. I had a major George Costanza day yesterday as I got fired from my job at CKPG. I was considering not talking about it on the air, but that would only to save CKPG face, as I feel they are in the wrong. Everything that I got fired over could boil down to my mental health issue, my general anxiety, and depressive disorder. So, I will be holding them accountable. It's like, I feel it's like the James Gunn and Roseanne Barr way. It was over tweets that I had posted, but my tweets were a little bit different. They were me being frustrated at not being hired as the fun chaser or to be hired as a reporter or any kind of full-time position. I was working part-time with them for 4 years when they decided to let me go. Yeah, so got a little bit sad over that one. Now I wish I had a guest. That's where like, okay, now you fill in. What? Now it's your turn to talk. But he's coming. Ryan Reynolds developing Home Alone-esque comedy Stoned Alone. I think that's going to be a great idea for a movie, Stoned Alone. How many times have you gotten stoned in your home alone and you get paranoid? Maybe there's not even going to be any bad guys. I really hope they hire Joe Pesci and, I don't know who the other guy who played Marv is. But in Home Alone 2, when Marv gets electrocuted and you can see his skeleton, for some reason that scene really stuck with me. He's just getting electrocuted so bad until he see his full skeleton. Have you ever heard of the theory that Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone grew up to be Jigsaw from the Saw series? I heard that theory online and it threw me for a loop because it's true. In the Saw movies, he always sets up these elaborate traps, and he got a lot more violent in time. Back in Macaulay Culkin's days on Home Alone, he would set up these big elaborate traps, but that was just to stop the thieves. So it started with noble intentions, but then it went downhill fast when he... Well, I guess you could argue the intentions were noble in Saw until it started getting a little more brutal, and when Jigsaw actually died, it became more of a murder game. I really liked both those movies. I liked the first Saw, and the second Saw was alright, but it started getting a little disturbing. And by the time the third one came around, it was at the most brutal level of disturbing. It was like... excuse me. It was like... gore porn. It was just brutal and just like... just uncomfortable to watch. I didn't understand why people loved it so much and why they continued it on so much after Jigsaw died and they made all 7 or 8 of them. It was getting a little redundant. And geez, by the time the 6th movie rolled around, it was practically just flashbacks. Really, but like not like full flashbacks. They just show 2 seconds here, 2 seconds here. I didn't like the direction of the 6th one. Let's see what's next. Oop. Page reloaded. Conor McGregor strikes plea deal. Felony drop gets anger management. I think that's a good idea. Conor McGregor always seemed to be on edge. I haven't seen him fight in a long time. I guess I kind of lost interest in fighting. My roommate was a big UFC fan, and once he moved out, I haven't really watched many UFCs. I've been thinking of having a UFC party where we watch the very first UFC, because it is brutal. I've seen it a long time ago, and I think just before the sport of just straight up fighting existed when they just let anybody fight anybody. And people were thinking who was going to win. Is it going to be the boxer who's going to win this tournament? And then Royce Gracie comes out of nowhere, the smallest guy in the competition, and uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and beats the biggest, muscliest wrestlers. It was quite an exciting event. Now it's all big money in politics. Dana White should fire Conor McGregor over top of this anger outburst. He fired people for a lot less in the past. Why? It's just because Conor McGregor is a money hub. Dana won't let that up. He's the bread and butter of the UFC these days, whether he's fighting in boxing or not. Why did he fight in boxing? He's a UFC fighter. Boxing is a completely different sport. Boxing, in my opinion, is a sport that's just limited in fighting. Like, you're only supposed to throw certain punches. Like, there's too many limitations. On to next. Roseanne Barr disgusted by the support for Guardians of the Galaxy's James Gunn. James Gunn got fired because of his pedophilia jokes he made way back in the day. 4 years ago, I think they said. And I guess people who are just looking for things to get angry about, just the online community, went nuts. And got... I guess it was enough for Marvel and Disney to fire James Gunn. And Roseanne Barr, shortly before, recently got fired from her hit TV show Roseanne, which was brought back from her 80s sitcom. Her tweets, she claimed she was on Ambien at the time when she made them. So she was on a sleeping pill and made some racist jokes. And ABC, who is owned by Disney as well, fired Roseanne. Only that one was really quick. It just happened a couple hours. There was a little bit of break, a public outcry about her racist tweets, and ABC fired her, and it was just instant. When I got fired, I actually went and cleared my Twitter feed about 4 days before I got fired because I could sense a storm was brewing. So I regret that after the fact that I got fired, because I would like everybody to see for themselves if it was fireable tweets. I'm not going to focus on that for all the show. I wish I could. I could just... I don't know. I don't feel like crying. Studio 720, a local Prince George band, have released their album. They released it 7 days ago on July 20th, which July is the 7th month. The 20th is the 20th day, obviously. The band's called Studio 720, 720. Yeah, I thought it was pretty clever. And they're selling their album for a unique price of $7.20 on Bandcamp. I highly suggest you go and give it a listen, even if you don't buy it. But I highly suggest you buy it and support some Prince George artists. I'm going to play some in the background here. Let's see. Do. Hey, it's Ian Gregg. You made it. I'm glad. I was starting to get burnt out in the first 10 minutes of my talking by myself. Just sending off some tweet. I'm playing some music in the background of Studio 720. Have you, you've heard of the band Studio 720, have you?
Absolutely.
Have you seen them live?
They had a show on 720.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Was that 7 days ago? Is it the 27th?
It's the 27th today. That was 7 days ago.
This month really burned right by.
Wait, is it it's got to be the 26th today because it was on a Friday. It's Thursday today.
Oh, it doesn't say on the screen anymore. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's a 26.
The
today.
26. Well, okay. Well, no problem then. Nothing to worry about. Nothing at all. Yeah, 720 Live is great.
Yeah, they're like a cover band majorly, and it's kind of exciting that they have some original tunes coming out now.
Totally. It's great to see like a local band start in that realm and then expand their talents.
Yeah, and their singer, JP Moldo, I've known him for a long time. He's been talented ever since high school. It's glad to see him putting himself out there.
Is he from Gispiox?
Yes, he is.
No way. Cool. Very cool. Formerly of Whiskey Fingers, right?
Yeah,
Right on.
they might get together one day. I wouldn't count them out. His folk music.
That's right. I gotta check that out again. It's been a long time since I've seen Whiskey Fingers.
They're classic. I have this. I shouldn't even talk about this, but I have a track that they recorded. And we never released it because it wasn't finished.
Whoa.
It is awesome. It's on the top of my iTunes. I listen to it every time I turn on my iTunes. It's Whiskey Fingers' old telephone, and he messes up. He swears right in the middle of it. He says he effed up, and I'm like, I just want to share it with everybody because it's so awesome, but I don't know if I can.
It can be a hidden bonus track on the next album.
Yeah, that's true. And it's funny, I guess I was recording a little bit of Whiskey Fingers, and he did this one track where he was pretending he was all drunk and he was slobbering and stirring over his words. It's hilarious.
Trailer Park Boys sort of scene.
Yeah, he was inspired a lot by Trailer Park Boys. I remember they were going to consider writing a song called Smokes, Let's Go.
Nice. Nice.
Oh man, I have some big news. I kind of said it on the air at the beginning of the show. I got
missed it.
fired
Oh.
from CKPG.
Whoa. Why?
Tweets. I made a few tweets where I was really pissed off because I didn't get hired for the Fun Chaser and for reporter jobs.
Right.
I guess I was a little too forward with it.
Oh man, they didn't like it.
They terminated me.
Man, social media.
I know, it's like the way that I guess Disney is setting a standard where they could just fire people if they don't like their tweets.
I wouldn't put it past Disney to do that too. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Man.
But the only thing, the difference between like Roseanne Barr and James Gunn and myself is there was a public opinion factor. Like the tweets existed from James Gunn for 4 years ago and no one cared until someone started talking about it.
Oh, really?
I think
I
so.
never heard about this.
Yeah, James Gunn, he was the director of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
The 1 and 2, and he was going to do the third one too.
Right.
And he was working on it. And then I guess it was just tweets that he surfaced 4 years ago. They were pretty inappropriate, kind of pedophile, like
Ooh.
talking about Justin Bieber in a sexualized way and
Interesting.
talking about how a shower's water pressure felt like a 3-year-old peeing on him. It was really weird
That's
stuff.
disgusting.
I know, but
I have to admit that is really raunchy.
and that's why he got fired over
Yeah.
those tweets specifically.
I could see that happening. But it's interesting that like he got fired over that from something that happened 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I guess they were always there on Twitter, but no one cared about it until some people started talking about it. When Roseanne got fired.
That's all it takes, right?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't really matter, at least at this point, it doesn't matter what you said when you said whatever it is necessarily. It's how people are reacting to it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough of a shift to pull you out, which is really interesting because right now, like the public in general has a lot of power. And I don't think we've ever had that much power per se before,
Yeah.
just kind of like in the moment so quickly. And you can oust people if enough people kind of get behind it and are determined to smear the reputation of whatever organization it is, right?
Or people.
Yeah, or people. And organizations tend to want to distance themselves from that individual if they feel like it's going to drag them down or make them look bad or something like that, right?
Yeah, I would argue that everything they listed a few other things why they fired me, but it all melted down to like a mental health issue. Like I was having a general anxiety issue. I still do. I'm struggling with it now.
Yeah, well, especially right now. Have you appealed it?
Not yet. It happened yesterday.
I feel like that's definitely worth the effort.
Yeah, I think I wasn't
It's
really.
not like what you said was offensive or harmful to, any individual
No,
or any vulnerable
perhaps
individual.
maybe CKPG might have been offended, but it wasn't to anybody in particular. Like If anything, if people were to talk about this on social media, I wouldn't be outsed as the bad guy. I think CKPG would be outsed as the bad guy for going out of line and firing somebody for a mental health issue.
Yeah, you might be able to comb
because I've asked for help multiple times, and they just kind of ignored my cries for help when very specifically asking for help via email.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to have something within their severance plan too that would still carry on after, you're not employed with them anymore. There's got to be services attached with a company, with an organization that large.
Yeah.
I would presume.
There must be some sort of 2 weeks pay kind of thing. I don't know.
And there's typically, whatever benefits you have tend to last, X amount of time as well. Because you probably already subscribed to it or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I don't have
There's a
help.
lot of paper that, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to read through now to figure out, what you can and can't access at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a big bummer.
It's huge. I was not expecting. It kind of wrecked my day yesterday.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Something like that can ruin your whole day for sure. Ugh. Man, so what are you doing for yourself in the meantime?
I'm keeping busy. I was seriously considering not doing today's show, canceling, but I decided not to. It's important to keep busy. I'm still working, doing the GP Does PG stuff. My day opened up. Don't have to go to work today, so I went to Work BC because I already have a job coach working with me, so
yeah,
I was already trying to get full-time employment anyway.
Yeah.
I was trying to, maybe a little too hard to stay within CKPG, but
right.
In retrospect, that might have been a bad call.
I don't know. You got to try, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you got to try. And it was definitely worth a shot to go for those other positions, right? And it's pretty hard to, go back in time and do things differently. All you can do is live in the present.
Yeah.
And
when when I do look
right?
backwards, I don't regret much. There's nothing I could have done for them to hire me. They never intended to hire me. I don't know if it was because of my lack of broadcast education or if it was the fact that I was too fat for TV. Sadly, they were judging me. And even when they were firing me, it wasn't just me and my manager and the general manager. They brought in an additional manager. They made sure that the union reps were there. It was I think they were scared that I was going to physically lash out or something.
Oh, wow.
So I think they were judging me in that way too, just because of the size of me and the unpredictability of that moment. What am I going to do being fired? It doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've seen anybody get fired from CKPG.
It's amazing that they put that much resources into it, yeah. Man. And how long have you been working there?
4 years. It was just coming up, so 3 years and 11 months.
Man.
Next month would have been my 4th year.
Right. What were your goals within CKPG? What did you want to get out of CKPG?
I wanted to potentially move on up and be a contributing member of society and start producing video content on a weekly to daily basis.
Right.
I just I felt like that's where my career was going.
Gotcha.
Being there, yeah.
Why do you want to contribute to society?
Society? I think I want to be an entertainer.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
Society could use entertainment.
I was thinking maybe stand-up comedy might be where I'll go down the line, but then again, that's a huge jump.
You never know. There's a scene in town.
There is. There's a comedy club now.
Totally. We've got a comedy club down at Sonar, and I also saw randomly over by North City Donair, there was it looked like kind of a open micy kind of place. I can't remember what it was called, Jim's Comedy Cafe or something like that.
I heard something vaguely
and
around that.
It looked like it was just a coffee shop, and then they've got a little stage in the back, and that's kind of it.
Really?
And just very simple, stripped down stuff.
Just stand-up comedy or music too?
I no idea.
No idea.
Yeah, it was closed when I walked by, and I thought, "What is this?" So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a door closes, a window opens.
Yeah. Exactly. I
Not
don't
that
feel.
that's the cure-all for everything, but
But in this situation with me, perhaps, it might be the best thing. Who knows? Only time will tell at this point. It's too early.
I'd like to think that 2 years from now you'll look back at this and be like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
It was pretty difficult to see that
The
moment.
Yeah.
Literally the day after getting let go of somewhere. Oh, it's a bummer, Garrett.
Yeah.
But GP is still doing PG.
That's right.
That's what's important. So getting let go of CKPG isn't going to keep you down. That's very clear.
Yeah. Those are the things that I
Next
was
day
doing.
you're on the air. Look at that.
Yeah. The day after. It just happens like that, guys.
That's right. But are you have you thought about what you're gonna do with some of the free time? You gonna go check out Kitwanga?
I was thinking about taking a road trip, but I'm kind of poor at the moment too, and then I immediately am getting less money.
Right.
So I think I might just be sticking around and looking for another job.
Freelance a little bit.
Perhaps, yeah.
Scrape together a couple bucks.
Pay some rent for a little bit.
Yeah. Get some gas money.
Yeah. So I could come up to the university and keep doing.
Totes, my goats. That's right. I've been taking, to save a couple bucks, I've been taking the bus up with a bicycle on the hill because the hill's like deadly to pedal up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it sometimes, and it's probably, I'm not going to lie, it'd be probably very good for my health to do it every day, minus the suspended air particulate that probably gets in your lungs. And stuff.
Oh, yeah, I guess you are just right beside the highway.
It's kind of not the most pleasant ride, but it is good for you overall.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's no doubt. It's got to be.
And then I'm guessing you ride the bike down.
And then you ride the bike down. And then you don't have to pay for the bus fare down the hill. Because that's the hard part. I mean, and with all that momentum, so long as you catch the green light at the bottom of the hill, you just coast all the way to downtown, essentially.
That's right.
It's pretty sweet.
Because it is pretty much all downhill.
Oh, down is easy. It's the easiest thing you can do.
You're listening to 88.7 CFUR, the Garrett GP Does PG podcast.
Tune in somewhere other than PG by going to www.cfur.ca. Listen live on the stream. You can do it 24/7.
Nice. In studio, I have Gregg, the station manager of CFUR.
Howdy, everybody. Hello, world.
Let's talk
Cameras rolling live right now. We are AV today, audio and visual.
Am I the only one that comes and films my show?
So far, yeah. And I think that it could set a trend, and especially with the way that podcasting is going, and in this day and age, it makes perfect sense.
I notice at home, that's why I decided to go the camera route. I watch most of my podcasts on YouTube, even if they are just audio only. It's just a little more convenient for some reason.
Interesting. Yeah. I've got I can't remember what my podcast app is, but I'm subscribed to too many.
Yeah, I've been looking for a podcast streaming service because I was using SoundCloud, but they only allow me to do 3 hours a month.
Interesting.
And because of my CFUR, just these 4 CFUR podcasts a month, I can't do that. That's
over the limit.
It'll only allow me.
We typically use Mixcloud.com to
Mixcloud.
upload stuff. The only thing is that you can't download the file from Mixcloud. But for our intents and purposes, that makes sense because
you're
then
doing
it avoids
music.
the copyright issues of downloading various things, right?
Right.
And then so you can be liable for the download and distribution of illegal copying and providing and so on if you make a download available. And then as an organization, we can't afford to take that risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but through Mixcloud, you do that. And if you list the track names of various songs that you play, when people listen to it on Mixcloud, it tracks it, and the artists receive royalties for the plays that they get on Mixcloud. Which is really
right
interesting.
on. I liked Mixcloud. I used that a lot when I had the Garrett and Carl 2000
yeah.
show.
That's right.
Does anybody do shows with vinyl anymore like we used to do?
Oh, man, 100% vinyl? There was, as of not too long ago, but right now, there is no 100% vinyl show. Actually, Radio Mod is, I think, almost 100% vinyl, if not 100% vinyl all the time. For some reason, it's easy for me to forget about that because I don't see Craig all the time.
Right.
But Craig Norton has this incredible record collection. He used to be the distributor for Sam the Record Man, and basically he curated like what Sam the Record Man played, like in their store for all of like Western Canada or something like that.
Oh, wow.
For quite a few years. And so, as a result of that, he's amassed this amazing, huge record collection, and he plays his vinyls on CFUR airwaves.
That's awesome. I love vinyls. I love those shows.
Every Monday morning, got a fresh episode.
And he does it live?
Pre-records.
Pre-records?
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Along with, since we opened up Studio B, now we have a lot of people pre-recording. Not very many people go live right now. And I mean, it is the summer right now, too. So we don't have as many hosts doing fresh content as we would in, like, the fall, say.
When the students come back, that's when CFUR gets pumping as well.
Yeah, it's when the content really starts.
Then we'll have to move the show because there is a talk show that happens at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, due north.
So I'll be
The
probably
new show.
pushed down to 11 o'clock or something.
Or
no
up,
biggie.
I don't
Or
know.
up.
Somewhere in there. Typically, it's a 1-hour program. Due north.
Due north.
Yeah. And I don't know if we'll do it 5 days a week this year. It's hard to say. We'll see what the interest is, how many interns we get into the program. But,
so we might not have to move the show as of
know.
yet. You never know.
You never know. Yeah. It happens when it happens, right? Yeah. It's very hard to predict the weather.
So you've been at CFUR for quite a while now.
Yeah.
You started off as the programming director.
Yeah, I started, kind of as like the program director / volunteer coordinator, and sort of unofficial volunteer coordinator in 2013, January 2013. That's 5 years. It's a long time.
Yeah. When did you become the station manager?
Let's see. I became interim station manager September of 1999.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
The interim station manager. It's like right before you become the championship station manager.
Was it last September or was it the September before? Maybe it's just been a really long year.
It's only been September
Maybe.
last year.
Maybe.
But it's almost a year. Pushing a
I
year.
feel like, no, because it was through the summer, too. Because I was doing interim stuff through the summer as well.
Last summer.
Yeah. Or, managing stuff through it. I don't remember. I don't know, Garrett. I don't know right now.
Don't put you on the spot.
Yeah,
It's just your life.
I don't know. It's all been a blur. It's really been a blur. Everything's, but I've been hitting the ground running.
Yeah, you must be really busy.
Yeah, it's very busy, but it's also very rewarding. Right? There's so much going on, and it's all really good. You get the information to the community. You provide original content. You provide the alternative to commercial stations like CKPG.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of interesting stuff going on in town, and I think that the commercial stations in town have their role, and what they do quite well, and they're available all over the place. They play the top 40 music and the popular stuff that people want to hear and so on and so forth. But when you get tired of that, and I do, that's why I'm here, because I get tired of that very easily.
Same here, yeah. That's why I listen to CFUR.
You provide the alternative, right? Basically, when normal isn't good enough, you come to your alternative radio stations like CFIS and CFUR. And we're really fortunate in this town to have two.
Yeah.
We've got both CFIS and CFUR, which is just incredible, serving two different demographics. There is definitely some overlap, but I really enjoy having both stations in town. I think it's just awesome.
Yeah, me too. I started off at CFIS. It is definitely a different demographic, I would say, more veered towards like the older population.
Yeah, the boomer radio, right?
Yeah.
And it's really important too because like the demographic of boomers in our society is going to be so much more than for example what my gen is going to represent in the future or does now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as that generation gets older and starts to retire and leisure time increases, what society is going to provide for activities and culture and everything like that is really going to be geared towards that. And it's smart to have a media station that is geared directly towards boomers. And I think it's also smart to have another independent media station that's not geared towards that as well, because there's quite a gap. I mean, between any generation for sure, but there's quite a gap, I think, between what the boomer generation wants and expects to what, say, Generation Y or millennial generations want and expect. So it's pretty interesting to see where those two places meet in the middle, and when it does happen, right? And I don't know. I think that, for example, you and I, when we want our interests represented in the mainstream media, for example, we're really going to have to try very hard to get those issues platformed and talked about. Like, for example, when it comes to mental health, if that's not an issue that is affecting the boomer generation, then it's not going to be an issue that's easily brought up to the table and discussed and have something done about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, though, hey, maybe this is finally the time when things could change too, right? Because I think that's probably something that we can actually all agree on. And the retiring boomer generation seems to be a little more in tune than the generation before it, as far as, you know, self-expression, wellness, recognizing itself, talking to each other.
That's true. It seems to be like a relatively new thing to take it as wholeheartedly as the youth today take
Yeah.
it.
I don't know. The way I look at it is sort of like, if you look kind of like at the past couple of centuries, right? In our area of the world, you know, a couple hundred years ago, things were kind of more geared towards, like, you know, get that money, get that paycheck, survive to the next day, have kids, you know, fend them off from disease, and try to get them into adulthood, do it again, and then you like keep on.
Yeah, there was more ways to die back in time with the medicine, right? And just the overall safety.
And I know right now we're in a place of, I want to say, relative comfort, and we can begin to focus on things that are harder to peg down than, say, like, you know, vehicular traffic deaths or something like that, right? Like, our roads and our vehicles are really safe. Everything has a seatbelt now, right?
Yeah.
It took a long time to convince people that that was a good idea. And now every vehicle has a seatbelt. And then, I don't know, you fast forward several years, and like that's something that's already taken care of. You know, you can drive back and forth from work pretty safely.
Yeah.
And it's sort of
no
like,
one looks at you funny for wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, okay, now that that's taken care of and I can survive back and forth from the way to work, now, you know, what other problems am I dealing with in my daily life? It's like, oh yeah, like, you know, constant anxiety. Like, that's something that's probably good to address. I feel like I would be better off having that dealt with, right? And I think a lot of people, you know, recognize things like that and are beginning to collectively and publicly demand answers and
a lot of people
solutions.
who are suffering in silence, they feel okay being able to discuss openly how they're feeling and hopefully realize that they're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the amazing things about the internet.
Yeah.
That's just that crazy whole internet. You know,
that's one of the reasons why I was making those Twitter posts in the first place. I was struggling and I wanted some help. I wanted to communicate with somebody. I was doing it all alone, and in those moments, I was feeling particularly low, and people reached out and they helped, and it did help.
Yeah.
So I feel very conflicted over this being fired.
Yeah. Oh man. And social media in general is one of those really conflicted spaces too, right? Because in one sense, you are encouraged to publicly, you know, express yourself, and it's a great way to get what you're feeling out there, right?
Yeah.
But you don't always get the feedback that you're looking for or is necessarily helpful too, because once you put, you know, yourself on your sleeve out there, you're opening yourself up to support, but you're also opening yourself up to the jerks or the trolls or whoever.
Luckily, in my experiences, no one's been overtly negative. they have all been extremely positive. I guess if they were negative, I guess they just never said anything and kept
Yeah.
it to themselves.
Yeah. With the glaring exception of CKPG.
With the yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's like a CKPG took the stance against free speech when they fired me.
You think so?
I think so. That's like they're against free speech.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting perspective. You could say that.
Mm-hmm. I'm not allowed to say what I want to say, or else I'll lose my job. They didn't give me any warnings about my Twitter feed in particular. They didn't ask me to take them down.
Yeah. It's amazing.
They have in the past, I guess. So.
Oh yeah.
It's been a persistent issue.
It's interesting that they have the energy to comb through various social medias and find stuff.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they followed me on Twitter. So.
Yeah. Or was it like at CKPG and stuff like that?
Nope.
Wow.
I didn't even say CKPG. In the last one, I said TV.
No way.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Ooh, the surveillance society, hey? Here we are.
Do you watch for your coworkers' Twitter feeds? Being the station manager here?
I spend 8 to 12 hours combing through our the various employees and volunteers' social medias. I don't get anything else done here. I just...
it sounds like you need
Facebook.
Another department.
Yeah. The Department of Surveillance. We're now hiring a surveillance coordinator.
Nice.
To survey.
Have you ever thought of like maybe getting a human resources representative instead?
No, unless something was... if somebody really had something to say publicly on social media about Twitter, about CFUR or about myself or an employee or something like that, I wouldn't be super thrilled about it. I would hope that individual would come and talk to me about it, and we could actually sort through the issue there. Because for me personally, when things like appear on social media and it's like, I'm angry about this and it had something to do with me, it's sort of like, oh, well, why did you talk to me about that? Like, that's where I feel like I can actually solve things, is when I'm actually, engaging with people one-on-one, and it's like, okay, so you feel this way, I feel this way, and this is where the situation is. So given the circumstances, like, how can we arrive to something that works for the both of us, right? But when it's on social media and it invites a whole bunch of people to engage with, and it becomes like this circusy thing, it becomes harder to deal with.
Right.
Because then the issue can also grow into something that it wasn't before, and then it becomes more difficult to find the actual root of the cause of the problem. And I don't know. But the reality, as it isn't necessarily, clean like that. But I don't know. It's tricky because this is a relatively new technology that we're figuring out how to use. We're figuring out what's, socially couth, what isn't. And you just have to learn by doing, because there is no playbook. There is no manual of like how to social media. There's no, hit pound key. Press 4. There's no play-by-play instruction manual, right? So it's sort of like a live and learn environment. And maybe our kids will have this kind of thing figured out. Maybe the whole system will be a little different. Maybe it'll be exactly the same. I don't know.
It's hard to say. The internet is such a new invention. The guy who invented the internet is alive.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. Hey, yeah. That nuts. And the net neutrality laws that got passed in the USA, do you read up on anything?
No, I didn't learn too much about that at all, but I remember people were freaking out.
Yeah, it's not like what happened at what now has the potential of happening, right? And as I remember, understand it, and don't quote me on this because I haven't read the bills passed or anything, right?
Yeah.
But it basically sounds like if the government deems it necessary, they can decide who the providers of internet are and what those providers are allowed to share. For example, I have a new social media software. Like, it's called, instead of Facebook, is ButtBook.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think it passes our series of regulations, so that's not going to be available in this country, right?
Jeez.
And so, sort of like that online censorship and stuff, and they call it net neutrality. It's like, oh, well, we have to make sure that everything that's on the internet is balanced and fair. And who's deciding that? There is no way that any group or individual in the entire planet can create something that is perfectly balanced and fair for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about your perspective. And if it's about the USA American version of balance, what does that look like compared to, say, Japan's version of what's balanced and fair versus Iran's version of what's balanced and fair? It's going to look very different to everybody. And if the USA actually manages to do this and set this up and institute it, they're essentially the example of the rest of the world to follow. If they can get away with it, I feel like everybody can.
Yeah.
It's spooky. It bothers me a lot. There's a lot of things that keep me awake at night. I believe in the boogeyman.
Check under the bed. Get your girlfriend. I need to sleep.
It's Donald Trump. It's just a dust bunny, honey. Thought it was his wig.
Yeah, that net neutrality stuff is pretty serious, eh?
Yeah, man.
Just taking away free speech.
And you know who might be, an advocate of, I don't know. It's just potentially a theory. It just popped in my head. Maybe Jim Pattison would be interested in being a player in net neutrality in Canada. Oh, he's got Western Canada, under his
well,
thumb
as a
in
businessman, it seems
Yeah.
that the business people appreciate the net neutrality to an extent.
Yeah, he's a successful dude, and he's got a lot of influence. And I don't know, if he wants to do something, he's going to do it. Not to say that it's like if Jim Pattison wants to introduce net neutrality, he's going to do it. He has to get it through Parliament, but who knows, right? Whatever the interests of the government elected are at the time, and that's where we go back to our interests being represented, right? Especially in politics,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. If, for example, not enough of the boomer generation cares about this, or is educated about it, or knows about it, or wants to know about it, then it's not going to be something that our elected representatives are going to be educated on either, or care about, or want to protect us from, or so on and so forth. They may have the idea that in order to protect us, they should be passing net neutrality issues where the government can control what we can and won't see. I don't know.
You're listening to the GP Does PG podcast on 88.7 CFUR.
88.7 FM.
What do you think about Russia's meddling in the elections? It just seems like there's this whole war front happening online.
Oh, isn't it fascinating? Isn't it absolutely fascinating?
It's like the Cold War is never subsided. Like it wasn't over when the Berlin Wall happened. It just went online when the internet was invented.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like when Boris Yeltsin, was elected and was around, I feel like that was probably the time of the best relations between USA and Russia. I don't know. I haven't looked into it all that much, but it certainly seems that way. And I remember when Vladimir Putin was first elected, it was like, oh, here's a new premier or president. I can't even actually remember.
I don't
his
know
title.
what they call, yeah.
And
Dictator.
Russia. And it's like, oh, that's neat. And then there was another election, and it's Vladimir Putin again. Okay, well, that's normal. Lots of people get elected twice. And then there was a third time. It's like, well, that seems like a while. And then there was a fourth time. And then there was a fifth time. And it's like, wow, this is a full-blown dictatorship. But, reverse it back a little ways. We haven't formally, as a globe, a planet, decided what is an active war over the internet. And I mean...
Yeah, that's such a new thing. Like you said, the guy who invented the internet...
Well, for example, in terms of copyright, here at the radio station, right? According to the laws and regulations of SOCAN, right, we are supposed to have a physical copy of everything played on the radio. like a CD, a vinyl record, a cassette, some kind of physical copy provided to us by the artist. I think that's the standard, is that the artist would submit a copy of whatever it is, and then we would play it. But now, here we are in the 21st century, and it's way cheaper for artists just to send us a digital download code or an attachment.
A lot of artists don't even make CDs anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And they want us to play their content. We have their consent, but we don't have the physical copy of it. So according to, the outdated law, we have to have that physical piece there, right?
Really?
But we don't, because the artist hasn't provided it, and they're not going to. And it's accepted, that this is the case, and every radio station in the country is doing this, and the regulators know this, and they understand this, and no one's about to like go and just fine everybody for it, because they know that this is the situation. But we haven't even caught up to that. And it's really difficult then to legislate that. So what does this even look like? Like, what does this mean for our whole model? How do we write the law so that it doesn't leave these giant loopholes in there for people to just bring in their personal collection and play it on the radio or whatever, right? Without any consent of any artist and so on, right? And how do you prove that if that's the case? And we'll see kind of what weird system ends up being in place, or maybe it's going to be wonderful. It's hard to say. But when it comes to, for example, cyber war, we have no way of pegging down what is and isn't an act of criminal warfare. Like if on a national level, someone hacked like the federal, our national federal reserves and wiped us dry or something like that. That would suck.
Yeah.
That would be pretty awful. And it's robbery. But who's to blame? How do you find the culprit? And how do you even actually prove where the source is from? Like, you can make it look like your IP address is from China and then reroute it to Indonesia, then reroute it to Alberta, then reroute it to
Depends
Mexico,
how good your tech guy is.
Yeah, reroute it to Patagonia, then reroute it to Iceland, and then it was actually the Danish who did it. Like, who knows? Like, I don't know.
And it's not
apparently
like
there are ways of eventually like settling down and nailing it and figuring it out, apparently.
But it's not necessarily the countries at fault. It's the citizens too. It's just anybody could become a hacker.
To a degree, you are right, because it is the citizens' responsibility to, at least within a democratic society, to elect someone who represents their interests, and that person is representing you. When Justin Trudeau does something, that is our elected official representing us abroad, domestically, internationally, you name it. It may as well be us going there and doing that thing. And yes, everybody realizes that, if he does something really bad, like, he takes a dump in the royal desk of the Queen or something like that, that probably, us individual Canadians don't all want to do that and don't all approve of it, things like that. However, he's our responsibility in a sense, right? So if we don't like the things that he's doing, we should talk about it, and we should do something about it, and we should get a different leader who does represent our interests. But when it comes to cyber warfare, if it's individuals, running rampant in the country, making individual attacks, say on a larger target of, the train station in the capital city, I don't know if the country itself would be at fault for that. It's tricky. I think the country should hold those people accountable.
Yeah.
And, charge them criminally. But I don't see that it is the nation's fault altogether that happened. But what's happening in Russia, at least is highly suspected, and they're compiling evidence to affirm this, is that it's government sponsored.
So even though they are individuals, the money that's supporting them was from the government in this case.
Exactly, right. And we're looking also at a world where governments internally in their, military departments are creating viruses and sending them to specific industrial targets around the world too. Iran got hit by, do you remember like Iran had like this nuclear program several years ago, and everybody was really worried about the Iran nuclear threat and and then it just kind of went away.
Vaguely.
And now it's kind of back again. Everybody's like, oh, the bomb. But what happened was there was a virus that got into the Iranian nuclear research facility, and it spun a lot of their equipment out of control, and it did tons of damage. And apparently it set back their progress by 2 years. They had to rebuild so much of everything over this attack. And then, so who sent this virus, right? And there's no smoking gun thumbprint on who sent the virus, right?
Yeah, when you're doing that, you can cover your tracks.
But they're pretty sure that it was USA, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like, the type of code that was created would be the type of code that could be accessed by people in the USA. It looked like it could, the types of little things look like governmental sorts of code. And
it's a good thing that they weren't more villainous when they sent out this code to actually attack somebody, go full Skynet.
Well, that's essentially what it was. I mean, from my perspective, that's essentially what it was, right?
But no mass deaths or in population or anything.
It's hard to say because it was pretty unreported, because when you do report something like that, who do you point the finger at?
Yeah.
And then what do? Do you start a war if you are pointing a finger at someone? Is that an act of war? If a missile came out of the sky and blew up that facility, it's on. It's very clear that, that it's an act of war. It's an act of aggression. It would be perceived as an act of war. But if it was a bunch of ones and zeros strung together that whoopsie doodle, the chair knocked down and then somebody hit the switch and whoop, and now we're 2 years set back.
Like the Three Stooges operating the...
And not to say that it wasn't malicious either. I don't know if people got hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people that got hurt in that. I don't know. For example, if you're operating heavy machinery and it starts malfunctioning, if somebody's standing in the wrong spot, something bad could really happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And as we get older, stories will eventually come out about this and things will become more clear. And it's going to be very interesting. But the whole world of warfare as we know it, I think, will also alter dramatically as we get more drones involved in things. Automation becomes a player. We might be looking at a place where who can hack who faster. If I can hack all of your drones and all of a sudden they're my drones, then your entire military is compromised. And if you did the same thing to me, then mine is compromised. And if we're both in agreement that we don't want to send people into war, then what really is the point of having a military? Maybe we just won't have them anymore.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
World peace.
World peace. No, maybe we'll just have a giant form of battle bots between countries. But
rock'em sock'em robots. Yeah. It'd be sweet if, our leaders could just sit down at a table and be like, all right, you got it? Yeah, I got this. And they just...
I wanted the red guy. I can see
not fair. You're the red
Donald Trump and Russia.
Yeah, you're right. This would never work. Yeah, I don't know.
I want to see that now, dude.
Yeah, that's right. Totally. I don't know. I can't tell you, Garrett. Can't tell you what's next. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is that we're here right now in a radio station, and there's still radio. You know why?
Why?
Because it's cheap. People can tune into this for free.
That's right.
That's one of the reasons, I think, anyway.
There's quite a bit of radio in town. I'm surprised that there is so much, but I guess radio has never bit the dust completely. A lot of it sold out and owned by the same guy over and over again.
And when you're in a rural area, it's really important too, as far as information gathering, hearing ideas that aren't necessarily what you're used to in your own day-to-day life, stuff like that. I grew up really rural, and the radio was always on, and that's how we got our information. And it doesn't take a lot of electricity either. So if you're running off the grid
to the
or something like
CBC.
that, that's right.
Yeah.
The CBC, 97.7 FM, the Sun FM.
Nice. That
was the classic.
Mine was CFUR. Listened to a lot of CFUR and the CBC. There was a country radio station too that played Hank Williams.
Oh, nice.
Over and over again in the top 40.
There's a CFUR in Kitwanga?
Not CFUR. What am I saying?
CFNR.
CFNR. That's what
Yeah?
I said. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a great
Canada's
station.
First Nations radio.
They've got a sweet show on there, and I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's like, it's their intro is just so radical. It's just like, in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh,
It's like,
the Vinyl Frontier.
The Vital Frontier. Oh my God! What an amazing name! What an amazing intro! It's just the best thing ever.
That is one of their
Vinyl
best
Frontier
shows.
Is so good.
They have this show where they play native music. They only play it for an hour a week, but it's really good too. They actually play some of my friends' music. I really get
Right
pumped every
on.
time. It's like, whoa!
That's radical. Yeah. Yeah, kudos to
I
local
only
radio.
got that same feeling when I listen to
We are patting
CFUR.
ourselves on the back. Yeah. Yeah, look, it's just awesome. It's good stuff. Just awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it comes to the local playlists, that's my favorite playlist that you have.
It's tons of fun.
Yeah.
Those IDs are smoking too. I feel like they're getting better all the time.
I was
That's
thinking,
And the ones that you got from the Kispiox Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, they're timeless. They're timeless. They're
yeah,
just awesome.
recorded on a cassette player. That all those, and it's so cool
Yeah.
to hear them on the radio and
This
be
is
like,
wicked.
oh man, just I don't know. I feel like it's a part of my legacy. Is just those audio snippets.
Yeah.
You're listening to 88.7 CFUR. I guess the GP does PG. Get that out of the way while we're
Yeah,
here.
GP does PG. One of the newest shows on CFUR Radio.
Yeah, this is
episode 2.
Episode 2. I'm
yeah.
I'm listening online as a part of my regular podcast too.
Solid.
But this is like a special PG.
Where can listeners subscribe to your podcast, tune in, all that jazz?
The best place I would say would be YouTube. YouTube.com/DOIJJ.
Nice. Deutsch.
Classic. I made that as a kid. I wish I could change it. I'll just own it.
That's right. It's difficult to change these things once they're established.
Yeah, the YouTube one was very difficult.
Do you think in the future, post Zero Military World, you'll be able to change your YouTube handle more easily?
I think I'll be the owner of YouTube post World War. It's like, it's mine now. I don't
It's
care.
like, back to reality. It's like, oh, but the things that actually matter, right? It's like, we've been trying to change our Instagram handle to CFUR ADIO so it's consistent with everything else, but
Yeah.
somebody else has it.
Oh,
and
no.
They have like 4 pictures from like 5 years ago. I don't know. I gotta contact this dude and be like,
Yeah,
so,
they let
do
me
you really
s-
want that?
They let me switch my Twitter and my Facebook
Yeah.
to at GP does no problem.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's only YouTube that's giving me problems. They let me change it, but they want me to put a C in there, so it's YouTube/C/ whatever I want. I don't want to do that.
Far out, sauerkraut. Right on. Do you have any? Well, you let me know what's next.
Okay, wait. Final thoughts. We got 10 seconds here.
Final thoughts. Okay, so in conclusion, the future is totally nuts. Maybe it'll look like wellness will be more of an issue that people are ready to